Yo, 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 welcome back to White Dads Can't Jump here with the main man, Chad. We are, I think, ready to get this thing started.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of failed attempts up to this point for technological
We've had
and
more takes than episodes.
I think what we've learned is the carb diet is not our friend because we are trying to use some carb diet books here to help us in studio and they are fighting us.
Right.
So.
We're equipment light today.
Equipment light. I like that.
This is, what would you call this? This is like in the trenches. This is like eyewitness news.
We're pretty much war
on
reporters.
the scene. Right. Yeah. We're in the trenches.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Main man Chad, this week we're going to run the theme of college, which means that we've got a couple of things going on. We've got kind of the other end of the spectrum for college. I believe you went to second grade birthday?
Second grader's birthday. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
not
right.
really. That's again, other end of college.
Yeah.
So how'd that party go?
So
were you pretty excited about it?
So the irony of hosting a podcast
Yes.
is that I really dislike talking. So, well, I'm selective.
So you're great at parties.
I am actually.
Nobody can talk about paint color and grass growing
paint
like
color.
you.
See what we talked about yesterday: paint color, the weather,
Yeah.
Pool landscaping.
Oh, got a little hot.
Yeah, patios. Yeah, I mean, we're in the game.
Home maintenance, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes with.
You're right. Okay.
Good
Perfect.
times. Yeah, good stuff. Snow cones.
Right. The way that I know how many snow cones my child has eaten is because every time they walk past me, the color of the snow cone changes.
Right.
So they start with a red one, and it's always full. It's just a different color every time they walk past.
Yeah, or they just get every color each time.
Right.
It just depends on which squirt order.
That would be a smarter strategy.
Yeah. What would you call some of the
suicide or something? Like where you get
artists? You know how Subway called them sandwich artists to make them seem more.
Oh, a cone artist.
Cone artist.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Snowball. Aficionado. We can bring it in.
I don't know. Okay. So then obviously that's the opposite end of the college spectrum. So as we wean a little bit closer to the college spectrum, I think that we can talk about some of our war stories from college. Does that feel good?
It's been some time now.
Okay.
They might be a little foggy.
So how did you get into college?
Well, so funny story. Not funny. I guess sad, really. So I took, my first story is my SAT story.
Oh, okay.
So I don't take my SATs at my own high school like everyone else. Why? I don't know. But I decided to go to another high school to take my SATs. So
you went a little more rigor.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Give myself a little more insight than necessary. So I go to take my SATs, and midway through, my nose starts bleeding.
You were stressed.
And I don't mean just like a little bit. I mean like
a single glistening drop.
No, it was like I used to drop nosebleeds. Like
I don't know.
They just stop. You know, when you're younger, sometimes people get their nose cauterized, but I didn't have to go that far. But literally, I'm sitting there, boop, boop. I'm like, oh my god,
this isn't gonna be good,
ma'am. My nose is bleeding.
Right.
So needless to say, my score wasn't very good.
You didn't get a 100-point bump for the nosebleed during the test?
If I did, kind of hate to see what it was like without it. But no, so took that, and then I took it again, and still didn't do so well.
Got it.
But I had the benefit of being recruited to play sports. So academics weren't really that important.
You didn't need to take that test.
No, my coach said, get an 800. You can get an 800.
And you get 700 for spelling your name correct.
800, you're golden. So I eclipsed that both times.
Nice.
Even the first time,
even with the nosebleed.
Even the first time I eclipsed 800, but I wanted to do it again.
Good.
And I did enough to get it. I got accepted at every school I applied to.
At both of them. That's great.
Well, I mean, even the ones I didn't go to.
Oh, wonderful.
Far-reaching schools, yeah. Places that I would never get into academically.
Where? How far-reaching?
Well, I mean, where I was at, the tri-state area.
Okay.
We had some out-of-state schools.
I didn't know.
New York State.
Like we were talking about the Parisian pastry school or like the University of Hawaii.
Semi-real schools.
Got it.
School in Buffalo, Pittsburgh.
Got it.
Some, I don't know, other places.
So you being a Kansas City aficionado, you realize that Kansas City sits actually on two states, Kansas and Missouri. So it's a big KU-MU rivalry. And I would say and K-State, but yeah, we don't even talk about K-State. Okay. It's very equivalent to the University of Florida and the FSU rivalry here.
Right.
So in Manhattan, where Kansas State was much further out, like an hour and a half. Stories about that, not for the podcast. So I ended up going to KU where they invented basketball.
Right.
I stayed in Naismith Hall, Mr. Naismith, the inventor of basketball. And my freshman year, so I got in, I did the boring stuff. I took the test, yada, yada, yada. So I was an RA I was in a private dorm. I was the RA, and there is this very unassuming guy who is a little bit too old to kind of be in college. And you're like, what's your deal?
Right.
But he was in charge of the RAs. And I said, I was working the desk one night, and this guy came in dressed like a ninja.
Okay.
And
which I have a ninja suit, by the way. I can wear that next one.
Of course. I think our viewers are going to be disappointed that Batman's not with us here today, and they probably assumed Ninja wasn't far behind. Yeah. So a ninja walks in to the front desk. And
what year is this?
This is
We're post 9/11.
Oh yeah. This
Okay.
is 2005. Fall of 2004, I guess.
I feel like if that happens in 98, you're not as concerned.
I wasn't super concerned, but he wouldn't drop the roots. Like, I was like, can I see your ID? And he's like, ninjas don't have IDs. I was like, all right, here we go. And then 2 more ninjas come in.
Oh.
At this point, I'm like under the desk texting Brian, and I'm like, Brian, I need you to come down here.
What phone were you texting on?
Oh, yeah, I was T9ing it. Like, this was old school.
You were like, no, crap.
Right. I wasn't live streaming from this phone.
I needed the 2 bumps to get the K.
It was just a series of Ks. It was like, that means get down here.
Yeah, for people that don't know, phones used to not have full keyboards.
Yes.
You had 9 buttons, and you had 3 letters per.
Which is why the BlackBerry was hot.
Yeah.
Because it had the full keyboard.
Yeah, I had one.
Oh.
No reason to have one.
Because you're on.
Was not internet enabled.
Was not internet enabled.
Was not
you weren't emailing anybody.
No, I just wanted to have it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So I've got these ninjas, and they're multiplying. We're now up to 3 ninjas.
For water.
And Brian is actually, he's coming. The ninjas are here. No one's giving up their ID, and they're about to walk through, which, you know, I'm making $4 an hour. Like, I don't care that much, but I'm kind of not supposed to let him through. And Brian comes out of the elevator. And the ninjas approach Brian, and they don't know he works here. And I'm like, oh, okay, guys, this is Brian. He's the RA manager. You know, I'm going to need you to talk to him. And the ninjas literally, whoa, go ninja pose. Here's what I didn't know about Brian. The reason that he was an older college student is because he was a retired Navy SEAL. And he was there because he got injured on a submarine. I swear to you that I cannot describe what happened because it happened so fast, other than to tell you that Brian had 2 of them on the floor.
Yeah.
And the third one had to go change his ninja shorts, and he quickly exited out the back door. All of a sudden, the tone of the situation changed, and the ninjas were not as confident in their abilities at Taekwondo or whatever they thought they knew a second ago. And I was totally relieved to have Brian there.
Yeah.
And he and I were best friends for the rest of my college experience.
Were they unmasked?
Yeah. No, they didn't have They had like Cobra Kai.
Just a headband.
Like headband.
Right.
Whatever, but not like proper masked. Huh. So that was my freshman year college experience.
Why they were there ever?
No, once Brian killed him, there was nothing to talk to.
Wow. Yeah, unfortunately for me, after my first year at school, or my first semester, I transferred to another school, and then I lived at home, which is not quite as fun. Because if a ninja came into the house, that would be a little more concerning than if they tried to get into the dorm. And
you would tell your brother to get out of the ninja costume and then go to bed.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't get to live on campus. I said get to. I didn't live on campus.
You did?
Just that first semester in a dorm.
Oh, okay. So you did get a little taste of the dorm life.
Yeah, it was awful.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like these new schools where you have suites and all that. It was like my room with bunk beds.
Yeah.
And then the shared floor bathroom.
I was literally talking to another dad within the last 2 months who said that he went to his kid's college, and the kid said, "Hey, Dad, let's go, eat." And he goes, "I want the full college experience. Let's go to the meal plan."
Yeah. They're
having filet mignon and ribeye on the meal plan.
Yeah,
that was not an option where I went.
Yeah, college has turned into like resorts, it seems, comparatively.
Right. And the cost seems to be matching that experience.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because when I was in school, I remember I think my tuition was like $7,000
for the whole 4
year.
years.
Yeah, I mean this was a state school,
Right.
but still, it was not expensive compared to the books were still a little expensive, but not.
You know what's fortunate for us is that we have a college expert here with us today that we can get all these answers to all these questions.
So many questions.
How much does college cost now? Who's going? How did they get in? All that good stuff.
Because obviously we have little kids.
Yes.
But it gets there quick.
Yeah.
And honestly, in today's world, you need to start in like, I don't know, 7th, 8th grade to start planning the college track to make sure you go to the place you want to go or get the course load you want to go to. And who knows how to do that?
Right.
I certainly do not. I know regular parents don't. I think of one story real quick. I was like, this is how uneducated I was as a high school senior going off to college.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what a FAFSA form was. My parents had no idea what FAFSA. We literally went to the bank before I left to go to school, inquiring about student loans. And the bank's like, oh, yeah, you have to fill out. And I'm like, what? Because again, when you go through like the athletic part of it, like they just send you the like financial package.
Right.
Like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
And then when you realize there's a whole world out there that you don't understand, it's just overwhelming.
Yet to be explored.
Yeah.
Well, again, the navigator of those seas who is here with us today is Miss Elizabeth Martin. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
So excited to be here.
We are excited to have you and answer some of these wild questions when it comes to college. So I guess we'll just start here. What is the number one misconception that students or parents alike, because obviously we're coming at it mainly from the dad's perspective. So what is the misconception that parents have about college today?
I would probably say that anybody can get into the Ivy League schools. Anybody can get into UF or FSU. It's gotten a lot harder now. And I think everybody knows that the Ivies have always been somewhat difficult, but now it's 3% acceptance rate.
Wow.
And it takes a lot to get into one of those.
Absolutely. In fact, I heard that there was a student who had been accepted to Harvard and he ended up still not getting in. They ended up rescinding his application because they had overfilled their numbers. So it was an error that was a big enough deal that it had made the newspaper.
Can you imagine the party that family threw for that kid?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
I can't even imagine.
All the Harvard gear.
Yeah, all the Harvard gear, right. Now on the front lawn.
Yeah, those kinds of things happen all the time. And also I just saw something the other day where a student did not tell the college, I think it was Brown. He did not tell the college that he dropped AP Calculus. And then they got his final transcript, and the final transcript showed that he didn't have the second semester. So they called him and they said, if you had told us this, we could have worked with you. But because you did not tell us this, your admission has now been rescinded.
Honesty is the best policy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I always tell my students.
Now, if a kid gets into Brown, for example, did they also get into Yale? Is it kind of you get into one, they get into all of them kind of thing, or is it?
What I've seen in most cases is that they get into one or two, but they don't get into all of them because they're all just so difficult.
Right, absolutely. Now, do they openly disclose, is there collusion amongst the admissions offices of, let's say the Ivies? So, does the Harvard admissions officer, do they say we're considering XYZ candidate and get in Yale? Do they talk amongst themselves openly, or do they keep it more in a vacuum?
They not officially, but I know that a lot of those admissions counselors know each other.
Might go to lunch.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they actually have an official conversation. Now, there's another scholarship program for high financial needs students. Mm-hmm. And in that case, they all get together and they decide who's going to get the scholarship, the full tuition scholarship. But it's unique to that scholarship.
Got it. So actually, I think that's an interesting thing to segue into so when it comes to paying for college, and we've been talking about Ivies, so let's carry that, and then we'll talk about state schools. So let's say that my little Johnny got into Harvard, but I'm a teacher. I don't have Harvard money. Right. How does that work? Does Harvard typically offer a package for a student like that, or is it left up to them to find the funds to pay?
So it's all need based. So
Okay.
they meet Ivy Leagues and some other highly selective schools meet 100% of need. So if the student has the need, they will get a full tuition and room and board scholarship, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear.
But getting in is the hard part.
Right. If you can get in, don't worry about the money. Right.
Right.
You know, it's interesting because I just saw a meme, I guess, or an image, and it showed the Ivies and it showed their acceptance rates, but then it said average tuition. But the tuition was only like 13 grand. But I guess it's because that accounts for all the kids that are given that need base, because I assume Harvard costs more than
Oh,
$13,000
absolutely.
a year
Absolutely.
to attend.
If you're full pay and you don't have need, you're going to be paying $85,000 a year.
Yeah,
with
right.
everything.
Right.
Or maybe even more than that.
So then, all right, let's bring it back down a little bit more to earth. So if we're talking about like the University of Florida or Florida State, are those need-based as well?
Yes, and they also, I don't know if everybody knows about the Bright Future Scholarship.
Okay, yeah.
But that's another great thing that we offer here in the great state of Florida.
Yeah.
So there are just 2 tiers of it. You just have to qualify based on a certain GPA and test score and service hours.
Got it.
And that covers.
And that covers the top level covers 100% of tuition.
Okay.
And then the next level down covers 75% of tuition.
Okay.
You still have to pay for room and board. I think that's another misconception is they think that they have to pay, that they don't have to pay anything. They still do have those room and board.
Do they cover the books?
They do not cover the
Oh,
books.
okay. So that's good to know
So they
too.
still, right.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful
Yeah,
information about the
because
Bright
that's something
Futures.
I knew about Bright Futures, but I did not know that it did not cover the full experience.
Right. It's just tuition.
Just tuition.
But then there's also other merit-based scholarships that students can apply for
Sure.
or qualify for based on need.
Right.
And then also honors program scholarships. And then of course the need-based loans that come from the loans and the grants that come from the
So if a student hits the top tier of the Bright Futures, they're probably also qualifying for these merit
absolutely,
scholarships. Then,
absolutely. That we see that a lot at our schools.
So my takeaway from your messaging is study hard in school, kids, because if you can get in, the finances is not necessarily going to be the prohibitive factor for you attending the school of your dreams, whatever that may be.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
And also I think that people forget how difficult it is to get into University of Florida now.
Yeah.
A lot of parents that I talk to think that because they got in 20 years ago, that their students are not going to have a problem. But now it's a very low acceptance rate.
I mean, think about the number of people that went to college 25 years ago compared to the number of people that are applying today. I mean, you had that whole wave of our generation kind of being the first generation of everybody expected to go to college, maybe slightly older than us, and now it's just the norm.
Right.
I know, like my parents didn't go to school and they did fine because they were baby boomers and that was just the way the world was. But then it shifted, so now I can imagine the number of applicants is through the roof comparatively.
This year was actually a record year because there was a baby boom during the time that these 17-year-olds were born, which I can't figure out what.
I was going to say, you always think COVID or one of those kind of things.
And they said that the next one is 2037, which is the COVID.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Right.
Well, that would have timed up with the 08 financial crisis, right? Would that not be
spiking?
I think it was 07
I
was
guess
their birthday.
So things were going good.
Got it. Things are going good.
And then
and then they realize, how am I going to pay for this kid?
Oopsie.
Right.
There goes that little order.
So as kids know GPA, and we know by being educators that AP classes can weight your GPA differently. Can you speak to where is the right balance? Like, should a kid just take every AP class or in order to get the highest GPA that they can, or where is that sweet spot for students with AP classes?
Well, first, let me say that it's not, we actually met with a rep the other day who told us that they don't even look at GPA.
Oh.
But they do look at the transcript and they still want to see that the students are taking the most rigorous classes that they could take.
Got it.
So colleges look at the college applications from each school within the context of that specific school. So they want to see that the students are taking the most rigorous curriculum that the school offers
is available.
Is it GPA because GPA is, there's no standardization for it across?
Yeah, and I think that they just, sometimes they know that some schools inflate the GPA, so it's just easier. Sometimes they recalculate them, and then sometimes they only look at the unweighted, and then sometimes they don't consider it at all. So it depends on the school. Each school is very different.
Yeah.
That's another common misconception is that every school does things the same way. It's very, very different. And I've seen that,
I'm sure.
every year there's something different that happens.
So then to that point where they all have their own metrics of consideration. So where does like the ACT and the SAT land in terms of a deciding factor for different institutions?
Well, first of all, another thing about Florida is that all of the public university system is test required in Florida.
Okay.
They are not test optional. There are a lot of schools now that have become test optional since COVID.
Right.
Some of them have gone back to requiring tests, and other ones have remained test optional. Actually, a lot of the Ivies and highly selectives have gone back to requiring tests.
Gotcha.
But that is not, obviously, that is not the only thing they look at. Everything you really have to check all the boxes, especially for the highly selective schools.
Yes.
Right.
But it can help them a lot if they have a high test score. It really can. They want to see that that one thing informs the other. So they want to see that the strong transcript matches up with the strong test score. So I think they like to see cohesiveness all the way through the application.
I was going to say, it's almost like they're looking for an inconsistency compared to anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, talking about AP, obviously the other option that people have is the dual enrollment.
Right.
So how do those two balance themselves out? How do colleges view that? Because I know dual enrollment, just kind of understanding what it is that you get credit. You're taking a high school course through a college that you get the credit for, right?
Yes.
So AP obviously is an external course that has their own curriculum and their own exam at the end of the year. So you have to pass the exam. So what do colleges value when it comes to that difference there?
So I think first I want to say that each school is different. Each high school is different in what they do with dual enrollment. I think the most successful program with dual enrollment is a school that has a collaboration with a college and that they know that the student can easily work that into their schedule. And then some of those students do an associate's degree through the high school with that college. In that case, I think it's successful.
Yeah.
It's hard when a student at a high school that doesn't have dual enrollment tries to do it outside of school because it conflicts with their schedule, but also they are starting their college transcript with the dual enrollment course because it's a college course.
Right.
So if they get a C in their first dual enrollment course, that's a 2.0 on their transcript, on their college transcript.
Right.
And then a lot of state schools, if they see that, that means that they're already coming in with a 2.0.
Right.
And I've also heard of situations where students have been rescinded. They've gotten their acceptance rescinded because of that.
Yeah.
So, but another thing is, the good thing about AP is that it's all standardized and the curriculum is the same across the board. Whereas with dual enrollment, it's not a universal curriculum. So colleges don't know what you learned in that class. You could have just sat in the class and not really learned much.
Right.
Also, every college looks at it differently. Some colleges don't give it an extra weight. Some colleges give it 0.5 weight. And then I think the public universities in Florida, I think UF and FSU actually count it the same as AP, but they still value AP over dual enrollment.
Oh, really?
In most cases.
Yeah. Unless you said they're already tied to a school.
Exactly.
Right.
Do they value taking the course and passing the exam? Where is passing the exam?
In terms of AP?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the other nice thing about AP, so they give more weight. So they give a whole credit towards that class on your transcript. And then if you get a 3 or higher, and in some cases, you'll be able to transfer it over and place out of a class in college. Some require a little higher than that, but that's nice because students are able to place out, whereas they might not be able to place out with a dual enrollment course because they'll have issues with the credit transferring. And again, the college doesn't see it as a universal class.
Okay. And I know that this is a much more outlier case, but I have heard of students who have assembled their high school career around the idea that they would do dual enrollment to the extent that they would pretty much leave high school with an associate's degree, with the AA, so that in their mind, that would overcome the what are they going to take, what are they not going to take, because essentially they're passing off a completed degree, an AA in this case, to whatever the ultimate undergraduate institution is going to be. Does that seem like a cleaner plan to you, or is that still subject to some scrutiny?
again, I think the only students that can earn that AA are the ones who have that collaboration through their high school.
Sure.
But I will also say something else that we've heard about in the past is students who do dual enrollment and get an associate's, say they go to Florida State. They're not considered a freshman. They're considered a transfer student. So then they go into a class that is meant for a college junior.
Right.
And they struggle sometimes because all of the other college juniors in that class took the prerequisites at Florida State, and they took the prerequisites at, whatever community college, which is fine, but they feel like they're not as prepared.
Yeah.
That is another thing that we've heard even with, I think that dual enrollment has great opportunities. I'm not saying that it doesn't,
Sure.
but I think you just have to weigh your options.
God.
Yeah, because I imagine if you're at a school that is, because doesn't Florida State have a high school? Isn't there like Florida State High School as well?
No,
Or is there because I know some universities will have like a sister high school.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they have
Something like that. So,
Yeah.
and that's an opportunity for people there, but if they're just kind of meandering through, then
Right.
that's not the best course action.
Right. So you just have to have a plan.
Yep.
And then also honors courses. That's any way that you can challenge yourself. If you can challenge yourself with honors courses, colleges will look at those and give a half of a credit or a half of a point to the weight for the GPA. And then, as I said, APs, they get a whole point.
Sure.
So
if you have a student coming into high school, at what age or what grade should they really be focusing on? This is where I need to go. Like, is it as early as freshman year, or they need to understand, like, I want to go to UF, so I have to start building as a freshman my course load, or is that more of a junior senior?
I think thinking about college itself and where you want to go, that is better to think about a little bit later, because I still like the idea of kids still being a kid and not getting too stressed out. However, they need to start thinking about their resume and what to be involved in 9th and 10th grade. Because when the colleges look at the applications, on the common application, you have 10 possible activities that you can put on there. They don't want to see just activities from junior and senior year, because that clearly looks like the student is padding the resume just because, I'm just going to take up this activity because I want to put it on my application.
Right.
Suddenly I play 4 sports.
Right.
So
theater.
So I always tell students and parents, think about that early. Don't just join a club or something later in life, and think about what you really enjoy doing and your passions, and do something in the community. And then that way that can also show on your
That's what I was going to hit on next is I know there are some kids that are a member of the art club and the Spanish club and the English club and the cooking club and the diversity club just so that they have 100 things to list.
Right.
Does it come across as more authentic if a student sort of finds their lane? Like if they're a robotics person and they're part of the math club and they're part of the science club, so that again, there's more cohesion to these activities?
Absolutely.
I would assume that plays well.
That absolutely. We had the rep who visited yesterday was telling us that there was a student who was really interested in mechanical engineering, but he specifically loved cars. So he actually joined like the antique car association or whatever that was, and he was the youngest one there. It was him and a bunch of like 60-year-olds. but they took him under their wing, and they said, we want you to be part of the organization, and we want you to talk to other people about antique cars, and we want you to lead the car shows. And so doing something like that, I think, really showed. Find something to find a project. And I don't necessarily like the term passion project, but just find something that you can do outside of school because you want to do it, not because you have to do it.
You're authentically interested in it.
Absolutely. And I think that is much better. I mean, clubs are fun too, but it's much better to go into the community and do. And it's okay to do local things in the community.
Right.
Also, you don't necessarily have to travel abroad to do something. You could do something right here in the county. So
do schools require an interview process, or is it all?
Not anymore, usually. It used to be that they required interviews for admission. That was kind of like more our time in college. Now it's more interviews for scholarship purposes.
Okay. External from the school.
Right.
So
it usually happens in the admissions office, but
So then again, we've talked about GPA, we've talked about testing and extracurriculars. The essay is the other big piece that I know is it true that that's sort of universally required? Most institutions want to see an essay attached to an application. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Most institutions do want to see that, especially for the, for the highly selectives and the state schools that everybody wants to go to, they're going to have at least one essay required.
So I think that there's a little bit of a stereotype of what the best essay looks like. Let's talk about maybe the least best essay that you've ever seen come across your desk looks like. Have you seen anybody?
I'd be happy to talk about it. I've seen so many. So the main point of the essay that students tend to forget is that this is a way for you to talk about yourself and for the college to get to know you outside of your application. So you've already told them what classes you're taking. You've already told them what grades you have on your transcript. You've already told them your activities. All of that information is on there. They want to know something different. So what's something unique, maybe a unique experience or something like that? I'll tell you the bad topics.
Okay.
Can we guess?
Sure.
All right. So bad topics for
about their dog.
Yes, I'm assuming it needs to be something personal. Like I imagine there's some adversity involved.
Absolutely.
You want to have some. So I imagine if you just kind of talk about how great your life is, or like my dad owns this, and he let me drive his Rolls Royce one time, but I rear-ended somebody, and
it was so hard for me to pick the color of my first car.
Right.
I really struggled.
That's my challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering what could be a bad one, or I mean, if they committed a crime, like do they talk about that? That'd probably be bad.
That would probably be bad. I don't think I've seen one like that because there's also a disciplinary question and have you ever been charged with a
crime of any kind?
There's a question like that, or at least there used to be on a common application.
Got it.
There's definitely the disciplinary question.
All right, you got any other hot guesses here?
No.
Okay, we're just gonna.
I want to, but no.
Yep, probably not.
All right. So this one that I'm going to talk about is one that I've seen a lot. It's not necessarily bad. It's just common, way too common. Is sports and the big game. The first sentence, the opening sentence of every one of these essays that I've read is, "There's 20 seconds left of the game."
Oh my gosh!
Let me tell you why I'm a stud.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that, and then there's talking about sports injuries.
Yeah.
I tore my ACL. Yeah. That's very common, and not necessarily bad. It's just they see a lot of them.
Right. It's not standing out at all.
Right. Yeah. And then the other one that's bad is just they don't know what to write about, so they just repeat everything that they already talked about on their application. These are the activities that I'm involved in. These are the classes that I'm taking. This is the high school that I go to.
I think what's interesting when you talk about the injuries, what I don't think kids understand is that adulthood is all about perseverance. So like you persevering through something that you have to get through, like you have to get your leg back, and like this is essential for life. So like you didn't go above and beyond to get your leg rehabilitated. So like welcome to life. So I can understand how that would be something that they'd be like, oh my God.
Right. And then another essay, another common one that's not necessarily bad, but the admissions offices see this a lot is the mission trip essay.
Oh.
So I went on a mission trip and my goal was to help these people.
Right.
But really, in the end, these people helped me.
Right.
That's also very common, which I understand, they're trying to be sincere.
Right.
But there's just so many like that.
To me, this is, you're sitting in the job interview and it's the classic, tell me your greatest weakness. Yeah. I'm too organized. Right. I'm too hardworking.
I'm a people pleaser.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So good news, kids have gotten all of the boxes checked and now they're excited. They are out doing college tours, which I know is another thing that you have a lot of experience with.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you a story from the news about a unique college tour experience, and you can tell me if something like this has happened to you.
Okay.
While visiting colleges in the Northeast, a guy we'll call Andrew had the kind of campus tour that gives admissions deans bad feelings. As the tour began one morning, a car pulled up and 4 young men dressed in black jumped out, grabbed the student guide, and tossed him into the trunk. A 5th young man emerged from the vehicle and announced that he was the new tour guide and that everything was going to be fine.
Did he say I'm the captain now?
I am the captain now. This is a true story. I did verify my source on this.
Wow.
Have you ever had anything like that happen to you?
When did this? Do we know where?
I do know where, but it happened it was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So yeah, not super recent, but at a prestigious school up in the Northeast.
Wow.
So it ended up being a prank. The dean did not find it funny. The students were reprimanded, but apparently it was part of a hazing ritual.
Yeah, I was saying that. It seemed very rush week.
It seems to not set the right tone to kidnap the tour guide as you're headed out.
Oh, no, I have not heard that.
So do you have any wild college tour stories?
Oh gosh, wild college tour stories.
Anything interesting happen?
Oh, I think it's just this is just kind of a commonality that I see a lot when I'm visiting. Not when I'm taking the students, but when I'm visiting myself as a college advisor.
Sure.
Just seeing the kids, the parents are all into it, and the kids are just walking behind. The parents asking the questions, and the kids are just walking behind. That's something.
That's funny. Yeah.
Pretty.
Might not be their top 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Got
Exactly. I think it's also important for students to know that they do have to ask their own questions and not always rely on the parents, because the colleges really like to see that too.
Yeah. Right. They're interviewing you as you're touring.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if they see that the parent is doing all the talking, I think that's a good preview of what the next 4 years are going to look like too. So it's important for them to be self-advocates.
Absolutely. Speaking of top 5, I think we're at that point of the show, Chad. Main man Chad, you got a top 5 for us here?
It's not college related, but it's contemporary news.
Okay.
Have you seen the rebirth of the dire wolf? Have you seen this story?
I have not.
So the dire wolf is what I guess the Game of Thrones wolves were based on. It's a very large wolf.
Okay.
And they are extinct. No more. So through science and the power of
White wolf, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the power of DNA. They have created 3 dire wolf pups.
Wow.
So I went with my top 5 today. Top 5 extinct animals that we All right. So they're in order. And there was a couple I didn't really know what they were, but I knew what I wanted.
Right.
So the first
Megalodon better be on this list.
No. I don't like sea creatures. You don't know it's down there.
I think that's the whole thing.
But I don't want a 40-foot shark in there with me. It concerns me. All right, I want to be able to see it. And speaking of this thing, you'll see this from a mile away. It's called a pelagornis. Are you familiar?
No.
Are you familiar? It's a giant bird. And when I say giant, this thing could have up to a 24-foot wingspan.
Is this like Jurassic era?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Of course. Based on our research.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I researched that it's got a 24-foot wingspan, and that was interesting enough.
That's all.
So that's intense.
Yes.
Holy smokes. That is twice the size of the largest condor. Fun fact. Put that on your college app. The next one, which I've actually seen the scale model of this sucker in person. It's called the Titanoboa. Familiar with this one?
Snake?
Giant snake.
Oh, hard pass.
So when they found this, they found the vertebrae somewhere in South America, and they made a scale model and they put it in the Smithsonian. And I happened to be living up in that area when it was there, so I went to look at it. So it's this 40-foot snake.
Oh.
And for scale, they had it eating a crocodile. So they had a full scale model of this thing eating a crocodile. So this thing up to 42 feet long.
Wow.
And they said it could weigh up to 4,000 pounds.
That thing could stay extinct. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. They said the head is like 4 feet.
Ooh. Oh.
Yeah. So the next one, I went with the Brachiosaurus because everyone loves the Brachiosaurus. Like, who doesn't want a long neck dinosaur?
Yeah, a non-meat eating.
Right. Yeah, I didn't put the T-Rex or the raptor. I've seen Jurassic Park. That doesn't end well.
Right.
But the Brachiosaurus, they get along. The next one, this is actually on the company who made the dire wolves come back, is the woolly mammoth.
Oh, meaning they're trying to...
Yeah, they said within the next 10 years.
That's their goal. That's what I heard. Yeah, that's their goal.
Interesting.
So you've seen Ice Age.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, and my number 1, also an Ice Age. If you want to guess which one?
I would have gone woolly mammoth. I don't know. T-Rex?
Saber-tooth tiger.
Oh, saber-tooth tiger.
Is there anything cooler than a tiger with also giant teeth? I love tigers. I have one on my cup. So I mean,
this is going to be a fascinating zoo. But I put all this together.
Oh, no, you still have them free, bro. Life finds a way.
Brachiosaurus.
Yeah.
On your left, folks.
Right. And an alligator eaten by Titanoboa.
Well, I think that we got to, at this point, thank Elizabeth for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Having me.
Helping us out with all these great college tips. Mayman Chad, anything before we head out?
No, I'm excited. I think we got some good information. We had our questions have been answered, and I think we have provided some good information for parents and students alike to get on the college application.
Great job patting yourself on the back. All right. Thank you so much. White Dads, be good.
All right, out. All right.